Hi there. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Emily Henderson, and I am a program manager on Google's Learning and Education team. I've been at Google for a little over 10 years, and the entire time I've been working with Google's mapping tools, such as Google Earth and My Maps and Tour Builder. And I'm so honored to be here today to literally be talking about my favorite tools. As all of you know, we recently made an announcement that we will be sunsetting Tour Builder next summer. But what we're really excited about is that we actually have pathways for you to bring your existing tours and maps data into Google Earth. So you'll be able to enjoy them for years to come. And furthermore, you're going to be able to experience them in 3D. So today, I'm going to be demoing some tips and tricks to keep the migration as smooth as possible and help bring your tours to new heights. And then also just point out where you might notice some things that are different. As a reminder, as the presentation is going, please feel free to ask your questions in the question and answer box below. We have Googlers on hand to answer your questions live. And don't worry, if we don't get to all of your questions, we have plenty of help forums and resources to help make this process as wonderful as possible and to really support you. But just want to take a step back. I always think it's important to reflect on why we're here today. And our journey really begins 15 years ago with the launch of Google Earth, the first 3D globe of its kind, bringing so much rich geospatial information and the world's satellite imagery in one place. And what was amazing is after the launch happened, people were using Google Earth in ways that we never even thought. Through crisis response, cultural preservation, community mapping, raising and transforming education, nature conservation, public health. You know, you really name it, I'm just scratching at the surface. People are using Earth to tell the stories that matter to them. And that's what we really know, is that stories are the fabric of our lives, and they're so critical to humanity. And most stories are place-based or have some location component. And so looking at Google Earth for the desktop, we recognize that as a tool, it was a little difficult for many users to use and get into, and was also difficult to share stories really easily. And so that's why we decided in 2013 to create Tour Builder, a web-based geo-storytelling platform with really, really easy UI and elements so that anyone could go in and start building, creating, and telling the stories that matter and taking people on the journeys with them. And so after Tour Builder launch, we still were continuing to develop and work on Google Earth. As I just mentioned, Tour Builder was always meant to be really simple. But back in 2017, we actually launched Google Earth for Web, bringing so much of what was wonderful about the desktop to the web to make it easy for anyone to access and to have new experiences. And so after we launched new creation tools past fall, many of the features are very, very similar to what you experience in Tour Builder. We decided it was time to sunset the tool. But with that said, we felt it was so critical to have a pathway and migration points so that you wouldn't lose your maps data and you wouldn't lose your stories. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. And I should mention what's really exciting is that, you know, Tour Builder launched in 3D, and then unfortunately we had to deprecate the Earth API. And so then it meant it was a 2D experience. And so coming back to Earth means that all of your tours and stories are going to be back in 3D. And so just to give you a quick flavor of how dramatic your story will change once migrated over to Google Earth, here is an example created by a team of mountaineers who were traveling through the Himalayas. This incredible adventure is a story that really can only be told with maps and to really immerse people in place. So Tour Builder was a natural solution to tell this story at the time. However, when traveling across India, traversing the Ganges, going up mountains, this 2D experience really lost a lot of what the expedition was already about. And the story felt a bit flat. But after its migration over to Earth, now we can see it back in 3D. The story has the same elements of photos, videos, rich text and content, and all of the places have been retained. But now there's the added level of a new dramatic perspective. Furthermore, once you move over to Google Earth, you will be able to utilize everything that Google Earth's creation tools have to offer, which you'll notice they're very similar to Tour Builder, but with the critical element of very easy sharing. And that is the #1 feature request from all of our Tour Builder users over the course of time. So with migration, we're moving from a 2D perspective to a 3D perspective. So there will be some differences and tweaks. But what's fantastic is you can migrate and work on your projects as much as you'd like, and your original tour in Tour Builder will remain the same. Also, if you've been a longtime Tour Builder user, as I mentioned, tours created in 3D at the start in 2013 lost that view and became flat after we lost the Earth API. But when you migrate your tours over, they'll be back in 3D. So let's go ahead and jump right into a demo of how this will work and feel. So the first thing I want to do is just quickly walk through some of the UI of Tour Builder so we can look at some of the subtle differences in Tour Builder versus migrating over into Google Earth and working on your projects. And so I'm going to start with one of my own tours. Actually, I'm going to start with a tour authored by my colleague, Raleigh Seamster. And I just opened up the tour in editing mode. Now, what you'll notice, the first thing that comes up is this introductory card where you add your name, author name, photos, you talk about the tours, and you decide on your path. This card is quite different in Google Earth and doesn't actually exist. All of your data will come over in the migration, but I'll show you some of that nuance when we get there. And then clearly, as I start clicking through, we know this kind of editing platform having a location for a particular point. Again, being able to enhance a story with photos and videos, changing icons, and also adding advanced layers like KML, KMZ, or time dates. Now, why I'm pointing this out is in Google Earth Web, we don't actually have the timestamps in the creator that you would just add to the story itself. And we'll also follow up a little bit later on some of the nuance around KML and KMZ. And then if I go into done editing, we can take a look at that experience. So clearly I'm flying from one point to the next and following that path. I'm dropping into Street View. I can see videos, but as we said, this is a 2D experience, so it's all in the satellite mode. So now I'm going to switch over and I'm going to actually show a different tour that's coming out of the gallery. Many of you know that Tour Builder was really initially created thinking of veterans in mind and how can we help them tell their stories and journeys of their tours. So I'll go ahead and open up Japan at the end of World War II, a tour created by Dorothy Barton Masha. One thing to call out right now is when you open your tour builders, this is the view, the screen that you see. But once you move into a 3D globe, it's not really possible to cover this. So that's just something to be aware of. But of course, as I go through, I'll follow that path and I have all that rich information. Another important thing that we'll also see here in Tour Builder, there is the ability to add image captions. That is not possible in Google Earth over the course of the migration. We don't support that feature yet. However, if you do have a lot of rich captions, all of that data will be retained. And so if and when Google Earth is able to support that feature, your image captions will show up. But we'll take a look at that in a second. So now let's move over into how you actually migrate your tours. So you're going to go up into the little butter bar, hot dog bar, whatever you want to call it. It's up in your right-hand corner. And you're going to see export to Earth and download. And there is a difference between the two. When you export to Earth, essentially we are creating a copy of your project that then can immediately be opened up and edited in Google Earth for web. When you download your project, you are going to be downloading a KML, and that KML is going to be locally hosted on your own device. So rather than going to the cloud and having access to Google Drive and all of that sharing capacity, you will then have to decide how you want to share your tour via sending or other devices. So we're going to go ahead and export to Earth, and that will be my focus today. When you export your projects into Google Earth, it will take a little bit of time. From my experience of working on this for quite some time, it's really only around 5 minutes or less. However, if you have a tour that is really robust and has a lot of different media content, a lot of different cards or added layers, that's where you're going to see that it may take some time. But you will receive an email notification once the new project is ready, and you can do this as many times as you want. So I've already exported this tour, so I'm going to go ahead and click out. I didn't want you all have to sit and wait for the email. What will happen is you'll get an email and you'll have a little box that just says open in Earth. And when you click on it, you're immediately going to be sent into Earth and the tour will be open. And so we're going to go ahead and click on it. And I'm going to go ahead and present. So as I mentioned before, that introductory section, that introduction card is going to populate and the authors are not lost. The information is not lost. It's all there. It's just a different experience. And if I go back into the editing mode, right here, I can edit my title and I can add a description, but everyone in the public, if you're sharing your presentation or if you have collaborators on it, they can see the project title, but only you and the actual people who can edit the tour will see the description. So this is more for you, not a part of your introductory card. So now you'll also probably noticed that we opened up in 2D, or it opens up in 2D, but then there's slight nuance because of the 3D mode. So if I go in true 2D, it's going to look like this. If I go back into 3D, we have an angle. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Okinawa, and we're going to practice changing our perspective. So to edit your view, you're going to go ahead and click on your little pencil. And here, down in the right-hand corner, is where you can work on changing that perspective. So I'm going to be in 3D. I can use my cursor to move around. But I can also use my compass to pan and tilt by just doing a gentle dragging. And then because I'm in editing mode, I can decide I want to capture this view. So this will be the view that we see when we come to the Okinawa location. So even though this view isn't directly on the icon, which is over here, this is still what you will see. Let's fly to another place. Let's go to the Tongass and Luzon. I'm going to go ahead and edit the feature. So here, this is how we kind of dropped in. Now I'm curious. I'm going to go back into 2D mode. So the other exciting thing is you have access to Street View imagery. So I'm going to go ahead and press the Street View man, or I call it the peg person usually. And hopefully all of you are familiar, wherever we see those blue lines, that is where Google has gone and collected Street View imagery. So I'm going to go ahead and click on a line. Oh, this is the interesting location. Oh, it seems very pretty out here though. You can also, just like in Street View, click on the white bars and progress along the track. Okay, I'd like a view of the beach. So I'm going to go ahead and capture that. So this is where we will travel to when we go to this particular location. So I'll just go ahead and preview it. So we still have the same dialog box and the photos. We just have that Street View imagery instead of the satellite view. Let's see, we'll fly somewhere else. Practice one more time. So again, it goes into kind of a 3D mode. It's our best approximation. One thing that's important is right now I'm in presentation mode. To change my view, I go back. So when you change your preview, make sure that you're in the edit mode so that you can easily capture the view. Actually, I think I want to see this in 2D. I'm going to capture this view. And of course, you can go ahead and change your icons. You can also change your view manually. All right, so we covered image perspective. So one thing that I mentioned is that these lines, they migrate as a single thread. So it's not as if you can edit the lines individually or in between each location. It's just one long line. You can change, you can add information about it. You can change the color. You can also change the way that it kind of surfaces over Earth. But this might be one of those things that you want to play with in Tour Builder and see if you like that experience, or play within Earth. But again, you can do it as many times as possible. When you're adding points, so if I were to, let me zoom out a little bit. Let's go back. If I wanted to add a new feature, just going to throw something there. Feature. Save. You'll notice a path doesn't actually connect to it. Then you would actually have to go in, add a line or shape, and connect it in whatever way you want. But you won't be able to edit the line itself that was migrated from Tour Builder. You can delete it if you don't like it. So that's paths and lines. Two other things that I definitely want to point out. One, You know, what's really special about Tour Builder is you can copy your projects as many times, but you can also copy your Earth projects. So maybe you're trying to find the right way, but you don't want to keep on tweaking one single project. You want to look at them side by side. This is a great way to do it. You can also continue to export all of your Earth projects as KML files. If you want to open them up in Earth, host them locally, or share them via via email. But then the big thing that everyone has been asking for is this ability to share with other peoples and groups and to make these tours public. And so I can just go ahead and add people or not. And with that, as I mentioned before, there is some nuance to the KML and KMZ layers that you can add to your tours. So right now, we don't support the feature of bringing the KML and KMZs over into Google Earth. And so I'd like to show an example of that. Here's a beautiful tour builder project created by the California Marine Sanctuary Foundation. And they do a ton of work evangelizing marine protected environments on the coast of California. They created this tour, and for them, showcasing where they're working and where these environmental areas are is absolutely critical. And so they have added a number of KMLs to their tour. But when you migrate it over to Earth for Web, you'll discover that those KML layers, so that like rich information of the squares and the polygons, doesn't actually transfer over. So our recommendation is, what you can do is you can take your KMLs and KMZs that you have in your tour builders, you can download them, then upload them into Google Earth and pin them. I'll show you that feature in a second, but I also just want to remind everyone, Google Earth Pro is a wonderful platform for your projects that have a lot of data and a lot of KMLs or robust visualizations. So don't forget that that is an opportunity of where you can import your projects and store them. But let's go back and I can show you how pinning works. So right now, I deleted all the lines, but I'll go back and we can look at my life tour. Okay, so this is showing all of the different locations that I've lived in my life. And you can see I was playing around with lines. Now, maybe I have another piece of data that I want to show, specifically a KML. So right now, I'm going to pin Earth, and it says pin my Earth life tour. It comes back up to the top. And I'm also going to look at this US state's capital. So I'm going to go ahead and visualize it. And you can see that KML, which I imported, is now visualized alongside my tour. But then when I remove it, it's gone. And so if you have data sets that aren't coming over and migrating with Tour Builder, or you have other projects that you need to download as a KML, but you still want to have visualized, you can go ahead and pin and see multiple projects at the same time. And that's just as effective for any Earth project that you want to look at. You'll have to play with it to find the right visualization, and you can, turn things on, turn things off, unpin, repin. We still have Japan at the end of World II visualized. We can take her off, put her on. So you can see it's actually a really nice workaround for the any KMLs that you might have. So now I feel like I've shared a lot of information, and you probably are already working on migrating your tours and playing around with Earth. I want to share a few final notes. First and foremost, Again, we have a really robust community to help make this as smooth as possible. You can find plenty of information on the Tour Builder About page. We also have the Google Earth community forums, and we have a Google Earth education forum specifically for educators working primarily in K through 12 environments. A very important reminder is that you do have to migrate all of your data before July 15th, 2021. After that point, we will be deleting everything in accordance to our data policies. And so if you really love those tours, start doing it today, or encourage your peers and colleagues to work on their projects and bring them over to Earth or Google Earth Pro. And then last but not least, if you are in an organization, whether it's a school or a nonprofit, whatever it is, and you're utilizing G Suite, Google Earth has to be turned on in the admin console in order for your migrations to be successful. If Google Earth is not turned on in the admin console, meaning you don't have access to that service, you will get an error notification with your email. So if you end up getting an error notification, you might want to investigate your G Suite access first. And if not, please reach out to the community and we will help problem solve. And with that, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope we answered your questions, or that you're excited to dive in and continue to create and tell stories that are so critical for many years to come. Thank you.